Good morning. Good morning. I'm Brad DeLong, and this is my morning coffee. My morning coffee for this Holy Thursday. Yesterday I said that we divide up Karl Marx into three. Marx the economist, Marx the political activist, and Marx the moralist prophet, and that I might talk about Marx the activist and Marx the moralist prophet some other time, talking then about Marx the economist, who I find valuable. And Holy Thursday appears to be a good time to at least start. So let me start with Marx the political activist. Marx the political activist, he had 5 reasons he thought it necessary and possible to work to overthrow the current system, the system we still have now. First, he believed that because capital is not a complement to but a substitute for labor and production, that technological progress and capital accumulation that raise average labor productivity, that they also lower the working class wage. Hence, Marx thought the market system could not, and in the end would be seen as unable to deliver, the good society we all deserve, and so it must and will be overthrown. It simply creates too much inequality. This seems to me to be simply wrong as a piece of analysis, as a prediction. Second, Marx believed that businessmen continually expand the domain of capitalism, and competition from poor workers in newly incorporated peripheral regions puts a lid on the wages of labor in the core industrialized countries. Hence, inequality grows in the powerful industrial core, which should and in the end must trigger revolution. Here too, this seems to me to be largely wrong. It seems to me to be very possible for the international economy, if properly managed, to balance up and not to balance down, as far as the level of real wages in the core is concerned. Third, Marx believed that previous systems of hierarchy and domination maintained their control, that they maintained their control by hypnotizing the poor into believing that the rich, in some sense, deserved their high seats in the temple of our civilization. Capitalism, Marx thought, unveils. Capitalism unveils all. Capitalism replaces, quote, masked exploitation by naked exploitation. And without its ideological legitimations of birth and status and God-given right and desert and so forth, unequal class society, Marx thought, simply could not survive. This also seems to me to be completely and totally wrong. Completely and totally wrong on its own terms. See the work of Antonio Gramsci, Passim. See also Fox News. Marx also believed that even though the ruling class could appease the working class by sharing the fruits of economic growth broadly, through social democracy, progressive taxes, and so forth, they would not, because they were trapped by their own ideological legitimation. That they really did believe it was in some sense unjust for any factor of production to receive more in income than its marginal product as produced by the market. And so they thought democracy would inevitably collapse before an ideologically based right-wing assault, income inequality would rise, and the system would be overthrown. Now, the Wall Street Journal editorial page works day and night, 24/7, 365 days a year, in order to make Marx's prediction of the collapse of social democracy come true, but I think they will fail. Fifth and last, Marx believed that factory work, lots of people in cities living alongside each other, working alongside each other, doing relatively boring and identical things, would lead people to develop a sense of their common interest and solidarity as a class. Hence, the overwhelming majority would organize and revolt and establish a free and just society, something that was more or less impossible back in the old days, when the peasants of this village were suspicious of the peasants of the next village, and as a result, when the thugs with spears who were their lords in the upper class could play them off against each other. Here I think Marx mistook a passing phase for an enduring trend. Active working class consciousness as a primary source of loyalty and political allegiance, it was never all that strong. Nation and ethnos have always seemed to trump economic class much more often than not. My conclusion? There's very little in Marx, the political activist, that is worth paying attention to. In fact, I would say there's less than nothing worth paying attention to once you recognize that Marx's own polemical habits and his failure to prophesy what would happen after the revolution, that these were the things that created the cracks that turned Marx's world religion, the world religion that took Marx's work as its sacred texts, into one of the greatest evils humans have ever managed to create for themselves. I'm Brad DeLong, and this is my morning coffee.